Are we gonna focus? Focus on me. Focus on me. Please ignore the people that are outside that are literally having a whole field day. Hello my loves, it's your girl Colleen. Welcome back to another great video. So I'm gonna deep dive into a part of YouTube that I haven't experienced in a very long time, that is very close to my heart, which is booktubing. What I decided is that I wanted to read at least 3 physical books this year, and they cannot be any rereads, because I realized that I need to branch out of book series that I've already read, because that's just gonna cause me to go back to ones. And I chose physical books because even though physical books are superior, the past few years I've been mainly relying on audiobooks, which is crazy. Which audiobooks are still great, love them, but it's all that I really have time for. But I'm actually going to do a challenge today, which is completely going against what I had planned for in the new year, and I'm gonna read an audiobook. I'm doing a challenge today, which is I want to read Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us in one day. I have 24 hours to listen to a 9-hour audiobook. I'm very excited to read this one. My camera's gonna die, and I will see you after I start reading.
When Ryle walks up, I can tell by his voice. I hear sorry.
Fucking hell.
I look at the floor.
Oh my gosh.
It was his words sting. My words make Atlas pop. I stare at him for a color of his shirt, the opposite wall. Stop. And not after what he grabs his. I purse my lips together.
Say no. He's not.
What? My office, and I'm now on. Are you okay? Title it. In tiny letters, it said.
Girl, what? I hate
Be
that.
still, and I wince. My eyes again were from him.
Yes,
I
queen.
see it. To Elisa's sit on my lap.
Still hate him.
It's me. It rips me apart.
As you should.
Feel him home.
Cause
How would
he's
he know
crazy.
I start to. No. Why can't.
Girl, don't. Oh my. What the? Bye.
You know
As I
what
should. Hell yeah.
takes
Hell yeah.
words in my head trying.
Yes. Correct.
I came to tell you I came to tell you goodbye.
Bye. What the? Oh hell! Take it and run.
And he
Oh.
brushes
Period.
his eyes.
Respectfully. Bye.
Tonight.
Yes,
It's
Elisa.
been-
Yes.
She squeezes my arm.
Yes, Mama Blue. Whoa, that was a fire
Chapter.
line.
Ryle says down at her.
Okay, I don't like you.
He
Ryan,
leans
but it's a
down
cute
and
name.
kisses
That's what I'm
Emerson on her
saying.
forehead.
Yes,
He blinks
queen.
twice.
Holy.
It's like you, minting against the sun.
Material
I see the
girl.
relief doesn't immediately react. His so.
Yes, you can.
Note from the author.
Besties, I don't even know how to explain this book. This book. I don't even know how I'm gonna talk about it without starting to cry. As you can tell by this book shook me to my absolute core. So, I didn't explain in the opening of this video, but essentially, I've known about this book for a hot minute. My friend recommended it to me. I think I explained the story on how I got the physical copy, and then I put it back because I'm an idiot. And it has been like a week, I want to say, since I finished this book. I think today marks a week since I read it. I've literally had to sit and digest this book because of my thoughts were everywhere by the end of it. I was crying, I was sobbing. It was a lot. I wanted to put into the correct words to do this book justice, because this book, going into it, I didn't think it would have the impact on me that it did. I'm gonna try and review it, because I'm gonna do a non-spoiler and then I'm gonna do a spoiler review where I go deep into like everything. Non-spoiler part. This book, It Ends With Us, is essentially about a young woman named Lily who has experienced a lot of things in her life. She meets a guy named Ryle who is different than the people that she's really surrounded herself around. And even the beginning of the book sounds pretty morbid in the beginning, but it goes back and forth between between her present self and journal entries that she wrote when she was younger, where she talks about someone that was in her life at that time when she was going through a situation. I'm gonna put the book down now. Different things happen, and as the book in itself is phenomenal. Like, the writing style, Colleen Hoover is one of my new favorite authors. I don't know how I lived a life without knowing that this woman's writing existed, because it's so raw and real, and she's so good. And now it's the fact that Justin Baldoni is doing the writing on the script for the film. If you're following me on Twitter, I put out a tweet saying that when they're ready to cast Lily, hit a girl up. Even though I'm definitely not a redhead, I'd love to be a part of this film, whether it's playing Lily or playing Alyssa. Or my thing is, how do you pronounce the name? Is it Alyssa? I'm not sure. But yeah, that book's phenomenal. I 100% absolutely recommend it. Like, it is probably my favorite book of the year, and that is my ugly truth. Time for the spoiler part. If you're planning on reading this book, just head off the video right now, read the book, and then come back here so we can talk about it, because I haven't really been able to talk about it because it's just been so much, and I just need to let this out. So I want to put out a disclaimer that if you are my mum, my sister, my dad, any family members, probably want to skip this part. So let's go into the characters first in this spoiler review. Starting off with Lily, I felt her character extremely heavily. Like, her character had so much depth to it, and that's where you know that this story is not where you think it's going. And then Ryle, it's interesting how Ryle came into the story when he did. It proves genuinely, like, you may know someone and love them and meet them and have feelings for them, and they can change and become a better person. But if they are abusive, you can't change that part. All you can do is remove yourself from the situation. Let's talk about Atlas Corrigan! Oh my gosh. Atlas? I love Atlas. He was genuinely written by a woman. Absolutely. They were friends when they were younger, obviously, but then when he knew things were going off and things were happening, he was still there to protect her. And the fact that he named the restaurant Bibs because everything is better in Boston. And then, like, when Lily went through the night that she had, he was the first person that... I'm gonna call her Alyssa because that's the easiest way for me to say her name. Alyssa, I was obsessed with her. She gave me very much Alice vibes from Twilight, and that's what I think made me even happier, was because they're great. And like, I feel like just if you have an A name, you're a great friend. I'm just sticking by that. The thing that I love so much about Alyssa is that, like, she was always there for Lily no matter what, and like, just as a true friend. And it was the point when Lily basically said everything that was going on and like what happened. The line that stuck out to me was that Alyssa said, "As my brother's sister, I want you to be together forever, but as your friend, I don't want you to be." I'm gonna start crying again. Oh my gosh! I don't like carrying on camera, but that line just hit me so deeply because that's me as a friend, and sometimes I wish I had a friend that did that for me when I was younger and did go through very toxic relationships, and I wish I was brave enough to be like Lily to tell her friend that. Okay, let's talk about Marshall for a sec. Marshall's great. Marshall is so funny, and I feel like, of course, Marshall ended up finding out everything because Alyssa, I assume, just told him. But even when, like, Ryle was trying to come back into Lily's life after everything that happened, he was still like, "Do you want me to stay?" And it was just so sweet of him to do that. And just like, we love Marshall. The only person we don't like is Ryle. But let's go into different, like, plot scenarios. So the first scene, I will say, had my mind shook. I was blown away when they were on the rooftop. Like, and that's where I know Colleen wanted us to do it. She wanted us to fall in love with Ryle as Lily was falling in love with Ryle. So then when everything happened, we were also heartbroken and hurt from it. Because I was shook. When in the kitchen scene, that scene is heartbreaking to me because it's like, he pushed her, he touched her. Which, it shows to the fact that, like, if you're surrounded by abusive relationships, you want to avoid ever doing that. And I love that Lily also speaks into, like, the idea of you don't know or understand a scenario that someone's going through until you are in that same scenario. So, as she said, because she grew up around an abusive father, she would say, I would never let a man do that. But then when it came to Ryle, he did it about two times. Then the third time happened, and then is when she left. And you genuinely can say, oh, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that, because I guess, or assume hindsight is 2020. But it's like, you don't know until you are actually in that spot. And like, from that scene, I knew that it was just gonna be horrible. And that's why I was heartbroken. And then when Atlas saw the like cut in the band-aid, and he already knew, and it was just like, ah! And then that same scene, oh my gosh, when he was fighting him, oh my gosh, I was like, that's insane. And then what Ryle had the audacity to say about Atlas and Lily's relationship, that was funny. That was very funny of him. But again, a moment that I love Alyssa was that she was like, I was like, I'm not supposed to see him, but what if he's here? And he's like, he's absolute. He's like, I know I'm with child and you're with my brother, but this man is perfection. And I'm just like, same girly, same. After that, it was then like another scene, oh, the stairwell scene, and then the kitchen, then the other kitchen scene. It was with the magnet. It's like, if someone says something's in the past and it doesn't matter to them, Ryle was in the wrong because he went through her journal. Like, yes, he can connect the dots, but again, she was 15, 16 at the time when she wrote in those journals. Didn't know who he was. Haven't seen him since she was 16, on the night that he got beaten up with a bat. And it's like, yeah, I will always love you, because that's with your first love. You'll always love your first love, or have love for your first love. And him just assuming like, you're gonna leave me for him, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, she's not. If she's telling you that she's not, trusting the fact that she will not. It just broke my heart. Like, and then just how it kept on going. And again, it was just a lot. And the fact of the matter is that she then found out she was pregnant after that. It was just horrible, and just, wow. But I will love that they named the child after Ryle's brother. I thought that was quite sweet, and like, would be healing towards Ryle. And then how that connects back to the beginning, where he said that he had to deal with a child who did that and couldn't save the kid. And he was like, well, now that child has trauma that they're going to be stuck with. I had so many else, but it was just like a lot. Oh my gosh, when Atlas said what he was originally doing in the abandoned house that night, oh my gosh, my jaw dropped. And then it was literally the fact that Lily, in a way, saved him. I hate it here. And then when Ryle said what he did to his brother, and then he said, I tried to put it back. Colleen, jail. This book had me always just like on the edge of my seat, or like going back and forth. Like, it was never stable, and I think she knew that. I love the scene when like Lily was with Atlas's like co-workers / friends playing poker, and just being able to talk about it and just like laugh, and she was like laughing about the situation type of thing. And then the scene when she then asked why he didn't come back for her, and he said that he did, and the fact of the matter that he said he didn't want to interrupt her happiness. She knew that, because she wasn't with Ryle, but she knew that if she saw him, or if he just told her what was the truth, and that he wasn't lying about the girlfriend, that she would have chose him over Ryle. Which is true. We know that. The line of, if you ever find it that you can love someone, will you choose to love me?
We're gonna ignore the fact that I completely misquoted the entire quote, as iconic as she is.
That scene had me sobbing. The moment when Alyssa said she was pregnant because her and Marshall were trying, that was such a sweet scene. And then, I'm not gonna lie, I started to like Lucy. In that scene when Lucy kept on calling while Lily was in labor, and then she's like, yeah, talk to me later. She's so funny. The hospital scene between Ryle and Lily before everything went bad, when they were holding baby Riley, and he was like, when do we get to make our own one? Like, that's cute. That was sweet. And then everything just went south. Well, everything went south, started to go south before, but then it got even more south in that scene. Because the entire book was very healing. But the scene that really was healing for me was when they were in the hospital room. It was Ryle and Lily, and Ryle's holding Emmy. That's when Lily says, I want a divorce. Because he had a sliver of hope that they'd be back together. But she knew that, like, she needed it to end at some point. Basically reiterated every single situation that she was in. And then Ryle said, I would want her to leave him. And then I think the point that, like, hit me hardest was when she was holding Emmy and she said, my father abused my mom, your father abused me. It ends with us. As I said, Colleen, I'm gonna need you to pay for my therapy or something, because this is... I'm trying to think of other things that I'm probably missing. Looking back and editing this, I'm probably gonna remember so many that I would want to talk about, but it's just... there's so many things that happen. Oh! Okay, so my thing is, I loved the journal entries to Ellen. Like, I feel like that was a great way for us to understand, like, Atlas and Lily's relationship when they were younger and, like, the magnitude of it. And that he wasn't just a homeless person that she with. And then, or a homeless person that she with. And then the fact of the matter that she gave Emmy's middle name Dory, and then on top of that, it was the ending when, because throughout the story, she would say, just keep swimming, and then Atlas says, you don't need to swim anymore, we made it to the shore. I hate this book. In retrospect, I actually hate this book. My thing is that it was proof of Lily's character was that even though they couldn't have a relationship, she still wanted Ryle to have a relationship with Emmy, which is still very sweet and still caring, because she could have said, nope, you can never see this child because you hurt me. But she didn't want that to stop the relationship that he could have with Emmy. I have a feeling that deep down inside that she knew that this was the right way to go and that it wouldn't be horrible. It would actually be alright. And I feel like because there wasn't a lot of like Lily and Atlas moments, because it's not Lily and Atlas's story really, it's not Lily and Ryle's story, it's Lily's story. And it's basically showing how she heals from being a domestic abused victim to being a survivor and being able to heal from that. It is her story. In the long run, it's not a romance novel. I wouldn't call this a romance novel at all. This is genuinely her story on how to heal. And that's what I love the most about it, because I'm glad that it's focused on her healing and not on her finding the love of her life or the person that she's meant to be with.
I would like to see an It Ends With Us version, but through Atlas's point of view though. I am here for that.
But then the thing that hit me the most was then I normally don't read author's notes. Like, I just kind of skip over it because once the book is done, it's usually done for me. But I don't know why, something told me to keep on reading. And finding out that Colleen, like, literally this book is about her mum being abused and how her and her dad like didn't have the best of relationships. And it makes sense because the dedication was dedicated to her mum for my father, who tried his very best not to be his worst, and my mother, who made sure we never saw him at his worst. Like, reading that at first, it just was like, what? But then when you read the author's note on how the kitchen scene is literally the first time that Colleen's mum got hit by their dad, and then the different levels, and down to the point where her mum remarried, and she basically was like, I don't know who will walk me down the aisle when it got to that, because my stepdad was more of a real dad than my actual dad. And the dad even said, I hit your mum, point blank period. I was not a good father to you. He deserves to walk you down the aisle. I think that's the point that like hit even harder, because it's like, wow. And just, this book was absolutely incredible, and I feel like this book isn't gonna leave my soul ever, and it's just sitting and it's just chilling. That was my review. I think I've hit every single point of this book that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this like first ever booktube like thing I'm doing. Whatever book I'm gonna read, I'm gonna review it. I enjoyed this. I definitely give this like not even 10 out of 10, it's like 100 out of 10. Like, I love this book so much. It's genuinely one of my favorites. I wish I didn't start like my going through like this process with this book. I actually wish I read this book last, but I don't think I could ever. gonna read this book several times over because I love it. The writing's amazing, the characters are beautiful, and just this story was very healing, as I said, and I love it so much. Thank you for joining me on my first booktubing experience. I hope I get to do more. I plan on doing it since I am planning on reading 3 physical books this year, and just so I can make sure that I actually read new books and not just stick to the same 2. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next brand new video. Bye!